across the world, this is Mark Dolan Tonight. Happy Saturday, one and all. In my big opinion, a bunch of woke students have forced an entire university to go vegan. There's an all-out war on meat happening, folks, and it's one that we've got to win. If you think you're taking away my steaks, you can burger off. My Mark Meets guest is Britain's top rock biographer. Philip Norman will be talking the Beatles, the Rolling Stones and Elton. Do the young generation of musicians match up to these icons? In the big story, is the COP28 environmental summit a load of hot air? I'll be asking eco-campaigner and celebrity dad Stanley Johnson. And in my Take at 10, looking forward to this, my first on-air reaction to the shocking royal race. Wow, you won't want to miss it. So, 2 hours of big opinion, big debate and big entertainment along the way. A really busy show. I'll be dealing with the vegans after the news headlines with the red-blooded Ray Addison.
Thanks, Mark. Good evening. Our top stories tonight. Cumbria police have declared a major incident due to heavy snow. Vehicles are stuck in traffic and they're urging the public only to travel when absolutely necessary. It comes after the Met Office put in place weather warnings for snow and ice for many parts of the UK. That's set to last until midday tomorrow. Forecasters are saying that temperatures could drop to -12 in parts of Scotland. A British soldier killed in Kenya was just days from finishing his tour of the country. Major Kevin McCool was off duty when he died on Wednesday. His father says he was shot while on a motorbike trip. The 32-year-old had served in Europe, the Middle East, the Falklands and Africa. Joseph McCool paid tribute to his son, describing him as special. An 84-year-old man who died following a huge house explosion in Edinburgh has been named locally as James Smith. The blast, which happened in the Baberton area last night, was heard from several miles away. Mr. Smith is understood to have been in a neighbouring property. A 43-year-old woman and a 54-year-old man were taken to hospital. Police say there are no suspicious circumstances. Football fans who were charged following clashes in Birmingham on Thursday night have been granted bail. A special court session took place after violence erupted ahead of Aston Villa's match against Legia Warsaw. Almost 30 of the defendants were granted conditional bail, including a 22-year-old Polish woman who pleaded not guilty to violent disorder. West Midlands police say 5 officers were injured after several Polish fans were told they wouldn't be allowed into the stadium. Train drivers have been braving the cold to attend picket lines across the country as they begin a week of industrial action over pay. Commuters are facing 7 days of travel disruption. No East Midlands trains have been running today, and there's a limited service between London and Scotland on LNER. ASLEF members recently voted to continue walkouts for the next 6 months. And finally, Hamas says no more Israeli hostages will be released until there is a permanent ceasefire in Gaza. The terror group's deputy chief says soldiers and male Israelis are still being held captive. The comments come after Vice President Kamala Harris said the US won't allow the besiegement of Gaza.
The United States is unequivocal. International humanitarian law must be respected. Too many innocent Palestinians have been killed. Frankly, the scale of civilian suffering and the images and videos coming from Gaza are devastating. As Israel pursues its military objectives in Gaza, we believe Israel must do more to protect innocent civilians.
OK, this is GB News across the UK. I'll be back in about an hour. Now let's get straight back to Mark.
Nice to have Ray Addison with us on a Saturday night. He returns in an hour's time. Welcome to a busy Mark Dolan Tonight. In my big opinion, a bunch of woke students have forced an entire university to go vegan. There's an all-out war on meat happening, folks, and it's one we've got to win. If you think you're taking away my steaks, you can burger off. In the big story, is the COP28 environmental summit a load of hot air? I'll be asking eco-campaigner and celebrity dad Stanley Johnson. My Mark Meets guest is Britain's top rock biographer, Philip Norman. We'll be talking the Beatles, the Rolling Stones and Elton. Do the young generation of musicians match up to these icons? And in my take at 10, my first on-air reaction to the shocking royal race row. You won't want to miss it. Also tonight, as his legal woes grow, is Donald Trump's dream of a return to the White House now in tatters? I'll be asking the Queen of US showbiz, royal and political reporting, Kinsey Schofield, live from the United States. She's got the inside story. We've also got tomorrow's front pages at 10:30 sharp with 3 top pundits who haven't been told what to say and who don't follow the script tonight. Journalist and TV personality Ingrid Tarrant, best-selling author and campaigner Chris Wilde, and broadcasting legend Diddy David Hamilton. Tonight I'll be asking the pundits. Today is the day that millions of families are putting up the tree with tinsel and fairy lights. But some people think the tradition is old-fashioned, so I'll be asking the pundits in what will no doubt prove to be a heated debate. Are Christmas decorations a bit naff? I personally love them, so I want you to send in your Christmas decorations this year. mark@gbnews.com. Send in photos of the tree, of the cat if it's been decorated, whatever you want. I'm just looking for some Christmas cheer. So mark@gbnews.com for pictures of your Christmas decorations. Plus, the most important part of the show, your emails. They do come straight to my laptop as well. It's the same address, mark@gbnews.com. This show has a strict golden rule. We don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it. A big 2 hours to come. We start with my big opinion. You won't believe this story. Thousands of students at one of Britain's top universities will be forced to go vegan after activists won a vote banning meat and dairy products. Students at the University of Warwick backed a motion forcing union-run catering outlets to adopt plant-based menus, with 3 now required to do so by 2027 at the latest. But the move, pushed through by campaign group Plant-Based Universities, has ignited fury after it emerged that just 774 students, that's about 2.7% of the 28,000 undergraduates, were behind the plan. Only 15 voted against it. Now, this is all very strange. I thought higher education is about assembling the facts, gathering data, and reaching an informed conclusion. Did they not see the rather distressing report suggesting that children raised on a vegan diet were on average 3 centimetres shorter than those who eat meat? The bones of vegan children were also smaller and less strong, putting them at risk of fractures or osteoporosis in later life. The study by University College London's Great Ormond Street Institute of Child Health said parents must be aware of the risks of vegan diets. They said vegan children should be given vitamin B12, vitamin D supplements, and lots of other extra additions to their diet to reduce the potentially long-term health consequences of being raised on plants only. Not a ringing endorsement, is it? Have these woke students, who are supposed to be so clever and so much better people than us, not reflected on the air miles intrinsically linked to a plant-based diet with ultra-processed meat-free foods made in vast factories, packaged in plastic and shipped around the world? How is that good for the environment? Did it not come to their attention that plant-based requires vast monocrop agriculture in which millions of hectares of diverse land and the wildlife within it are sacrificed to accommodate mile after mile of corn, wheat and soy? How about the growing of almonds, which requires billions of litres of water? The same goes for avocados, the mass farming of which is linked to murderous gang warfare in places like Mexico. Meanwhile, livestock graze on natural land here in the UK, without the help of billions of litres of fertilisers and pesticides, which are, of course, essential to plant-based food production. No, cows, sheep, goats and lamb, for example, simply poo and wee on the ground, enriching the soil and watering it at the same time. They consume grass, which is inedible to humans, and they predominantly graze on land uninhabitable to us as well. So perhaps now's the time to mention the brilliant Jeremy Clarkson, in whose TV show Clarkson's Farm, it was revealed that a full-size cow contains within her 1,000 portions of meat, as well as the bones, which can be ground up and used as a natural soil nutrient. Blood and other unwanted tissue can be used for dog and cat food, and the hide can be used for leather. So, you get a lot of bang for your buck from Daisy the cow. What about the nutrient value of plant-based? Are Beyond Meat burgers and veggie sausages really going to power the intellectual demands of these young students upon whose prowess our future success as a society relies? Good luck with that, given that plant-based protein is far less bioavailable, which means it's not as easily absorbed by the body as animal protein. Fish, meat, dairy, that's the gold standard of protein. Air miles, shorter kids, inadequate nutrition, inadequate protein. It doesn't stop there, because if you go plant-based, you're going to be eating a vast amount more carbohydrates. Bread, pasta, potatoes, rice. Why is this a problem? Well, because excessive carbohydrate consumption can be directly linked to obesity and type 2 diabetes. And going plant-based means relying on the food industry for ultra-processed, ready-made junk. You know as well as I do, no one's got time to make a chickpea curry every day. It's vegan pizza, bags of chips and vast mounds of boiled pasta all day long. Now, I've got viewers and listeners who are vegan and they love it. No problem if that's your choice. But in time, I fear it's the authorities that will be choosing what we eat. And it will be soya burgers, vegan bacon and vegetarian lasagna. Welcome to hell. We've been eating meat for millennia, and if we pursue this plant-based experiment, I predict the next generation will be sicker, fatter, more tired and, frankly, malnourished. Most vegans don't get past 3 months before giving up. There are multiple reports of irregular periods, loss of muscle mass, fatigue and even depression from this restrictive diet. So in my view, those seeking to enforce a vegan diet are silly sausages. I've got beef with them, and frankly, they can burger off. Making everyone go plant-based is utter bollocks. OK, well, look, I think I've run out of farming metaphors. Your reaction, Mark, at GBNews.com. I'd particularly like to hear from you if you are a vegan, because I've got lots of viewers and listeners who are plant-based. Let me know your views. Let's get reaction now from my top pundits. Journalist and TV personality Ingrid Tarrant, best-selling author and campaigner Chris Wilde, and broadcasting legend David Hamilton. Let me start with you, Ingrid. Plant-based, yes or no?
Oh, gosh, no. Can I just go through...
You look like you've had a steak. You've got loads of energy.
Oh, yeah.
I know what you're that.
Well, actually, afterwards. No, can I just pick a little bit away at this?
Please.
First of all, I was saying, the North Koreans, just to give it a little bit of an example here, because you're talking about that children on vegan diets are on average 3 centimetres shorter. In North Korea, they're on average 3 to 5 inches shorter than the South Koreans. And that's not genetic because they're the same. Yeah. But it's their diet. And that is largely vegan because they're malnourished, they're impoverished and all the rest of it. I mean...
They can't afford to have meat.
Yeah. No, of course he can, because he's a little fat, chubby sausage. But...
Kim Jong-un?
Yeah, exactly.
That's you off his Christmas card list.
Yes, I don't mind. I really don't mind. But he's on mine still. I'd like to meet him, actually. Also, the head of the World Food Programme says that a poor diet in early years leads to stunted growth. So this is all absolutely right, and the first 2 years are critical. Vitamin B12 and vitamin D and calcium is really important. But, you know, the vitamin D is terribly important, and kids are in their bedrooms all the time. They never go out. They don't get the natural sunlight. So that in itself, it's just an unhealthy way of life. Add veganism into it, and you've got really sort of a pretty bad pot. And also rickets. And another thing, which I looked up, tuberculosis. You know, tuberculosis is on the increase.
Right.
It's up 7% than it was a year ago. And that is because of deficiencies in vitamin D and calcium. So it's all linked. It's just like bad news. And I just want to throw one thing in. that Rishi Sunak is Hindu, and they have 83% of Hindus have a vegetarian diet. And look how little he is.
Well, who knows whether that's the diet or genetics?
Well, let's not argue. Let's assume.
I don't know whether Rishi Sunak is a vegetarian, actually, but Chris, there may be a flip side. There may be a flip side to this, which is the students involved are worried about the impact on global temperatures of farming.
Yeah, and that's where I was going to go with this, Mark, as well, just to say that. First of all, universities is a progressive space. So freedom of speech, freedom of opinion, freedom of life. So, and using words like forced to go vegan, but I understand it. I understand it where, right, you know, we've got all this thing about global warming going on at the moment, and most of these young people now, that I think they're manipulated to think this way. They're manipulated to go down that road where you're scared to not follow suit in case of being cancelled. It's a lot of peer pressure. You're right, Ingrid. You're right. And I have a little girl, and I wouldn't like to think she was going to go to university and forced not to eat meat. And I come from a working class family. You're brought up on meat. That's the only thing. Yeah, meat and two veg. That's what, you know. And I survived. You know, most of the people in the North Yorkshire, these top athletes, they're brought up on meat and two veg. The evidence is there to show you that, you know, this kind of diet is about progressive. It is about, you know, how you grow up and how your bone structure. I don't want to be manipulated anymore. I don't want people telling me what I can and can't eat. I will make that decision.
OK, David Hamilton, what about, though, the argument that livestock farming is causing a huge carbon footprint, which means that we've got these floods, we've got the forest fires, and therefore we should eat less meat in order to save the planet? That's what these students are campaigning for.
You're asking the right man. I live on a farm, and I'm surrounded by 300 cows. I'm still here. I'm looking OK. I should add as well that I have a granddaughter who is at university. She's at Newcastle. She happens to be a vegan. But, you know, I agree with Chris. I mean, I think we have too much telling people what to do. Let young people make up their own minds about what they want to eat without being told what they should do. You know, there's too much control over people. You know, let people make their own
democracy,
decisions.
Freedom of speech, that's what university is.
Indeed, and also freedom of what to eat on your plate. What do you think about that? Let me know your thoughts, Mark, at gbnews.com. Also, later I'll be asking the pundits, are Christmas decorations a bit naff? They're all going up today. We did ours this afternoon, had great fun whilst doing it. But let's have a very illustrated debate. So I want you to send in pictures of your Christmas decorations this year. Mark at gbnews.com. We'll get those out as soon as we can. But coming up next in the big story, is the COP28 Environmental Summit a load of hot air? I'll be asking eco-campaigner and celebrity dad Stanley Johnson. That's next.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie, second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Oh! No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox,
That's right, we want to hear from you,
GB News.
Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
Affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you.
every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle. Could you be quiet? What is this?
It's my new t-shirt.
It's your new t-shirt. I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Are Christmas decorations naff? I don't think so. We spent the afternoon putting them up round at ours. A huge amount of fun. So you've been sending in lots of your Christmas decorations. I'll get to those in the next part. Producer Katie's busy at work loading your wonderful images into the system. But first of all, it's time for the big story. And tonight, it's COP28. The world's most important climate meeting is being hosted in Dubai by the United Arab Emirates, one of the world's top 10 oil producers. Now, it's not often I agree with climate pocket rocket Greta Thunberg, but she says this conference of world leaders is just blah, blah, blah. In other words, all talk and no action. So, can a summit in one of the world's richest oil states deliver meaningful action on climate change? Who better to ask than environmental campaigner and former MEP Stanley Johnson, who is flying to COP28 tomorrow. Stanley, is the location something of an embarrassment, given that it's an oil-rich state?
No, they make oil. They're going to be subject to the same kind of pressures that other oil producers are subject to. Yeah, I'm going there. I'm not actually pessimistic. I thought King Charles started off with a really good message. He couldn't go to, I think it was Sharm el-Sheikh last year. I think Liz Truss said he couldn't go. Right. He was here this year. He was in Dubai, and he sounded the right note, I thought. I mean, he pointed out that, yes, we've made progress, but there's a huge amount still to do. And there was a kind of melancholy note, and it wasn't there in his speech. He says, dreadfully far off track, pray with all my heart that COP28 will be another critical turning point. And then pointed out that we're 30% more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere than we were in 2015 when they signed the Paris Agreement, and 40% more methane. I'd say the methane is coming up the track fast. Well, for my money, the really exciting thing about this COP is that already you've had 100 countries sign up to a pledge to triple renewable energy by 2030. Now, that is a big deal. That's a big deal. We had the Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Guterres, saying, actually, that means getting up to 11 terawatts. Now, I've only just worked out what a terawatt is, but a terawatt is 1,000 gigawatts, and a gigawatt is 1,000 megawatts, and a megawatt is 1,000 kilowatts. And we know a kilowatt is 1,000 watts. So you can work it all out. So 11 terawatts is big. Now, the point is this. What is the real game changer? The game changer is actually China. I have just spent 8 weeks in China. I have gone west to east.
Are you big in China?
I am not speaking Chinese. I think you have to say Mandarin or Cantonese or whatever. You have to specify. I wish I did. I was with my son, Max, who does speak Mandarin, and that was really, really helpful. But the point I want to make is the revolution there is being based on renewable energy. Wherever you go, wind farms, solar farms, hydropower, but above all, they know they're going to get there. That 11 terawatts the Secretary General was talking about, 4 terawatts, going to come from China. And that's going to change
the coal-fired power stations, which are still being built in China.
Yes.
And you don't mention the fact that these renewables may be a laudable aim, but they're still an experiment, aren't they? It's a punt. We can't guarantee that renewables are the answer. Look at Germany, who have invested heavily in renewables for the last 10 years, and they found themselves, until a couple of years ago, still reliant on Vladimir Putin for gas.
Well, I can tell you, in the parts of the world where the sun shines, and there are huge numbers of countries which are sun-shining countries. Where I was, I didn't want to go back on China, but I just happen to know a bit about it now. OK, 4 huge desert areas. You've got Xinjiang, you've got Gansu, you've got Inner Mongolia, you've got Kinshasa. They are putting... It's not speculative what's going on there. And you see the spin-off. The spin-off is insofar as they can get the energy which is generated there to the urban centres, you are seeing clean air in Peking. I shouldn't say Peking, I have to say Beijing. I've been going to Beijing since 1975. In the old days, you couldn't breathe in Beijing. Now, and you can barely dare cross the road because you might be knocked over by a soundless electric vehicle. No more cars there.
There you go. You've got to have eyes in the back of your head.
You have.
What about Britain's global emissions of carbon? Around 1%. We've got our carbon down over several decades. We're a world leader in green tech as well. Why should my viewers and listeners be impoverished and make themselves poorer in order to reduce those carbon emissions further, given the fact that it's not going to influence the overall world temperature?
Well, this is where...
Drop in the ocean, isn't it?
It's not a drop in the ocean at all. We are 1%. If you add us to the EU, as you certainly should, we're far more than that. We then become one of the biggest players in the game. Europe as a whole, not a drop in the ocean. Tremendously important. Tremendously important, not just in terms of the effort we can make to bring our emissions down, also important in terms of the finance we can produce. So another thing which is going to come out of COP28 is the climate fund. Now, of course, we agreed the climate fund a couple of days ago, and Kamala Harris, as you probably saw today, has come up with $1 billion contribution. Now, that is, serious money. Even in these days of multi-billionaires, $1 billion is crucial. Very important, because adaptation, learning to live with climate change, learning to get on with your business is going to be crucial. And you've also got to understand that the developing countries do see that who used up the absorptive capacity in the atmosphere so quickly? Well, actually, we did. We did, and if you look at the figures Oxfam came out with the other day, 1% of the world's population contributes actually 16% of the world's carbon emissions. That makes you think. It really does. So one thing while I'm here, because I did mention King Charles, I thought it was thrilling that he wore a Greek tie. I thought it was thrilling that he came up.
Was it a nod to the debate over the Elgin marbles?
It was. I thought it was a very nice gesture. For my money, it's perfectly obvious the Elgin marbles. And I don't want to digress. Perfectly obvious the Elgin.
Away.
Well, digress. Well, for me, I mean, as a classicist, brought up as so many of us are, on Greek and Latin and pretty much nothing else, it's absolutely obvious that the Elgin marbles belong in Greece. They belong on the Parthenon. They need to be reunited with their brothers and sisters, as it were, from the frieze on the Parthenon. And I simply can't understand why we can't simply get on with it.
But here are 2 examples in which King Charles, who I know you admire, has stepped into a very political arena. Now, if you're an elected politician, that's your absolute right. But should our monarch, the head of state, be discussing net zero, for example, given the fact that it has real-world consequences for my viewers and listeners? They're going to have to buy an electric car, get rid of their diesel Volkswagen. They're going to need an expensive new boiler. Inflation might go up. Why is Charles entering politics in regards to net zero and also the Elgin marbles? He needs to keep his nose out of both.
Well, I won't agree with either of those propositions. By the way, he was
not a politician, Stanley.
By the way, he was onto net zero for years and years before the crowd. And in terms of the electorate, I think the argument is simply unrefutable that the living standards of people in countries all over the world are going to be improved if we do manage to tackle climate change. So that is just a fact which is becoming daily more apparent. It will cost
my viewers and listeners perhaps upwards of £10,000, £15,000 between now and hitting our net zero target, won't it?
I can't say that necessarily. I can say that if we manage to go ahead...
Will it cost nothing?
No, I can say...
Who's going to pay for those windmills and all that copper cabling?
Well,
and the solar panels, all the rest of it?
Well, there's a pretty good rule in economics now, which is that the polluter pays principle. So I think we will find that the balance is going to shift towards the polluters who up till now are having a pretty fair, a pretty easy ride.
Yeah.
So that balance is going to shift. I think it's, what coming out of COP now is something really worth looking.
A couple of brief ones for you. Are you disappointed by Rishi Sunak's diluting of the net zero target? I mean, he says, yes, we'll hit net zero, but he's given a 5-year stay of execution to petrol and diesel cars and also gas boilers. Are you disappointed?
I think the language which is coming out of this government now is not quite as clear on some of these environmental targets as the language of previous governments has been. And I do regret that. I do regret that. Apparently there were two drafts of the Sunak speech, one of which was delivered in plenary and the other which was delivered to the journalists. And for the journalists, it was pretty much more for home consumption. And I think that we need to be careful before we start saying, well, we're going to have to start.
Okay. And briefly, Stanley, you and I go back, known each other.
I know we do.
Channel 4, E4, The Last Word.
I know.
Brilliant star on that programme. I've always known you to be a conservative, at the very least a small c conservative. How, therefore, can you justify policies like the rationing of meat, people being given an annual allowance of air miles, or an electricity company being able to switch off your power supply on a whim? How can you, as a conservative, sign up for that kind of eco-communism?
Well, I tell you something, conservatives do also believe in the future of the planet. That's a pretty important point. Now, as it comes to, rationing, I think we will find that we will have carbon budgets. We will have maybe even methane budgets. And there will be...
Air miles allowance.
But I'm afraid that's something we're going to have to live with.
Well, then you're not a conservative, surely.
Well, I prefer to...
No conservative would allow for that level of intrusion on people's lives.
If it comes to the crunch, I would prefer to vote for the planet than vote for a political party.
Stanley, as articulate and succinct as ever. Do come and see us again soon.
My pleasure.
You know what, that guy, he has not aged a day since The Last Word. That was probably the...
2005, that was.
2005, there you go. Those were the days. Brilliant stuff. Stanley Johnson coming up with tonight's top pundits. Today is the day millions of families are putting up the tree with tinsel and fairy lights, but some think the tradition is old-fashioned. So I'll be asking my pundits in what will no doubt prove to be a heated debate. Are Christmas decorations naff? We'll see yours next.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquia, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle.
Could you be quiet? What is this? It's my new t-shirt. It's your new t-shirt.
I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie. Second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Oh! No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GB News.
OK, folks, well, look, reacting to today's big stories, I've got my pundits, and we've got a fascinating debate for them, because today is the day that millions of families are putting up the tree with tinsel and fairy lights and giving the whole house some Yuletide cheer. But some think the tradition is old-fashioned. So are Christmas decorations a bit naff, or is a bit of colour and sparkle exactly what we need at this time of year? Well, you have sent me so many of your wonderful Christmas decorations. So let's have a look at this offering. Kath from Witchbold, with a fabulous tree. It's positively glowing, isn't it? Look at your baubles, Kath. I'm quite jealous. Didn't know they could be so big. Derek in Lancashire. Another lovely tree. Look at that. You are a very classy bunch. That's a good star at the top as well. Looks pretty stable. And Sarah's tree. Fantastic. Nice. Look at that. Nice. So many lights. My goodness, that's sucking out a fair bit of power from your power supply there, Sarah, but brilliant job. Well, look, we've got lots more of your Christmas decorations to come, but let's get reaction now to that debate. Are Christmas decorations naff? Let's speak to journalist and TV personality Ingrid Tarrant, best-selling author and campaigner Chris Wilde, and broadcasting legend David Hamilton. David, have you put your tree up yet?
Not yet, but I think we need a fabulous Christmas this year. We've all had an awful year, and we need a brilliant Christmas to cheer us up. So I think we need to keep Christmas going. You know, there's some people, there's a danger that Christmas could disappear. It mustn't happen. So we will get up. We had a wonderful tree last year. We always get a new tree every year, not put the same one up. And last year it was so brilliant. It lasted for Valentine's Day. Wow. It lasted until Easter, and we didn't have. No. Well, we took all the decorations down, but not the tree, because it was such a beautiful tree, we couldn't bear to get rid of it. So eventually it did go, but even then it was, if you look after it well. But no, it's very important. We've got to keep it going.
Yes, too right. Have you been doing decorations today or this weekend?
Yes, Mark, as you know, I was brought up in a children's home, so I remember waking up when I was 12 years old, Christmas Day, the tree was dead, there was no presents there. So in my house, Christmas is special for me. So I go that extra mile, as many decorations, I put the tree up today. It's special for me, Christmas, because I didn't have a childhood, I didn't have Christmas, so I really go that extra mile.
Well, there you go. Where does the fresh tree versus plastic?
Fresh tree always, every year. When I go and get a real tree. I don't do plastic.
Non-drop?
Non-drop.
There you go. I grew up with one that had it was plastic and it had the lights built in.
Oh, wow.
Oh, what? And did you put it up like an umbrella?
Yeah, I think it might have been. It was certainly quite convenient. But have you, I mean, you've got Norwegian blood, haven't you?
I have. And French and German, so it's all very continental. And we celebrate Christmas Eve. You know...
Norwegians, don't they send Britain a big tree every year?
Every year that goes up in Trafalgar Square.
Oh, wow.
As thanks for the
Thank you for
Second
the
World War.
Yep.
Amazing.
Yep.
So what about Christmas decorations? Are they naff?
No. Well, you can make it look naff, but it doesn't matter. The point is we are celebrating Christmas, and it's all about the tinsel, the light, the baubles, everything that it represents, the star on the top, the fairy on the top, whatever it might be. I absolutely love it, and I just go one more. And all my animals, well, there's not so many that I have anymore now. I went from about 19 pets, and I'm down to about... 5.
Right.
They all get little stockings and... it's really quite pathetic.
I think we lost the Christmas spirit, and I think it's so important we bring it back. And even like getting your kids and stuff to make decorations, it's so important now to be creative.
Yes, how we used to do the chains. And you know the tragedy, every year it gets harder and harder and harder to find a Christmas card that says Happy Christmas. This year I've noticed it's Happy Holiday. Oh,
the horrible American.
It's a phasing out of Christmas, isn't it?
Yeah, we're not allowed to mention it. There's not the sort of traditional sort of, you know, away in a manger scene and any of that. It's so sad.
Christianity, even though it's Christmas.
And I love the turkey as well. I mean, I keep hearing that people want to have curry and they want to have something else.
And takeaways.
But I actually love the turkey and I really look forward to it.
Yeah.
Nice gravy on it so it's not too dry.
And the pudding, and I turn into a real pyromaniac because I have the candles over and then the pudding and then the brandy and then it goes up like this. I mean, honestly, I do the whole hog.
Brilliant stuff. Well, I tell you what, we've got lots more of your brilliant Christmas decorations to come, so we'll reveal those after the break. Coming up in my Take at 10, my first on-air reaction to the shocking royal race row. You won't want to miss that one. But first, my Mark Meets guest is Britain's top rock biographer, Philip Norman. We'll be talking the Beatles, the Rolling Stones and Elton John. Do the young generation of musicians match up to these icons? That's next. Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 till 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox,
That's right, we want to hear from you,
GB News.
Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
OK, we've got more Christmas decorations. I think who is this that we've got so far? Give me a shout, James, as to whose Christmas decorations we've got here. I think we've got one loaded up. Is that right? OK, no worries. Listen, a big reaction to my discussion with Stanley Johnson in regards to net zero. Stanley is off to COP28 tomorrow. Is it a load of hot air? Well, Richard says, Mark, net zero is a luxury belief of the luxury classes, a way to make themselves feel good by spreading virtue down upon the peasants. Gary says Stanley Johnson is as nutty as a fruitcake. OK for him to impose his crazy planet-saving rules on the populace, as he will most likely be pushing up the daisies by then. Well, let's hope not. Betty, she's not pulling her punches. Stanley can bugger off, one of those people who can afford to do whatever he wants, telling those living in fear, trying to afford to survive what to do. There you go. Brilliant stuff. A quick response to my big opinion. The university has ordered all of their... We've got a bit early there. It's all kicked off, folks. A big reaction to my big opinion about veganism. Dear Mark, says Anne, my husband and I have been vegan for 42 years. He's 85 years old. I'll be 80 next April. The only medication we take is paracetamol for the occasional small aches and pains. We do not have diabetes. So Anne says the vegan diet suits her well. Dan, and I've got no doubt that it's been a great success for you. Thank you for your email. Let's have a look at this. A lovely tree from Marita. There you go. And that's gorgeous. Love those ribbons. That's a massive tree, Marita. Great job. Who got that up? OK, folks. Look, it's time now for Mark Meets. You can't have too many Christmas trees. It is time for Mark Meets, and one of the country's leading rock journalists, Philip Norman, who's gained a worldwide audience for his biographies of the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, John Lennon, Paul McCartney and Elton John. His latest bestseller is entitled George Harrison, the Reluctant Beatle, which looks at the life and legacy of this underrated genius of music. Philip Norman, welcome to Mark Dolan tonight. Now, George Harrison wrote some of the best Beatles songs out there, didn't he? Including Here Comes the Sun and Something. He had a talent to match Lennon and McCartney, but was he sidelined or held back by his bandmates?
Absolutely, for a long, long time, this amazing creative axis of John Lennon and Paul McCartney that turned out songs very easily, just one after the other. George wasn't like that. George took time. Obviously, Lennon and McCartney helped him along. He studied how they worked. But it really was not until the very end of the Beatles' creative life together that George was producing songs that were the equal of John and Paul's songs, although he didn't write as many. The ones he did write, the best, stand with the best of theirs.
Indeed. Did playing second fiddle to Lennon and McCartney upset Harrison? Was he a tortured soul about this, Philip?
He was he was quite grumpy. He was the grumpy Beatle as well as the reluctant Beatle. But he had good reason to be, because he was always really discriminated against. In the recording studio, their producer, who was a wonderful man, George Martin, was so taken up with the talent of Lennon and McCartney, as he said to me later on with much regret. He said, I was always rather beastly to George. And he really did. He kept on. By sheer dogged determination, he hung on, and eventually he was recognised, of course, as we know.
Most definitely. Watching the Peter Jackson documentary about the Beatles, Philip, it looks like McCartney and Harrison had a particularly difficult relationship. Harrison stormed off a few times. What was the problem, do you think?
Well, in that case, I mean, that film, the Get Back sessions by Peter Jackson, was supposed to show how much they loved each other. But of course they didn't. During the recording session, George actually, and John and George, it was John and George, not John and Paul, came to blows over something that George had said about Yoko Ono, who was by then Mrs. John Lennon. But there was a very fraught relationship between John and Paul, because Paul could do everything. Paul could play every instrument. Paul would even take over the guitar solo, which was supposed to be George's province. George was the lead guitarist. But Paul would sometimes he'd decide to play lead guitar. And that was a very fractious thing between them for a long, long time.
And you could only imagine, Philip Norman, how many great Beatles songs we never had that would have been written by George Harrison. He really didn't have that opportunity, that outlet to generate more material.
Well, he did generate material, but it was rejected by John and Paul, and so his first solo album, which was a triple album, one of the very first triple albums, All Things Must Pass, was really full of songs that he either had rejected by the Star Chamber of Lennon and McCartney and George Martin, or that he hadn't bothered to offer them because he anticipated their indifference. So he had to get out of the Beatles, really, to show what he could do. But he wasn't a great quantity producer like Lennon and McCartney, but the best what he produced was really good.
Well, indeed, many think that Something is one of the greatest love songs of all time. Many people consider Here Comes the Sun to be the best Beatles song. He really punched his weight. Did he make peace before the end of his life with his time in the Beatles?
He was never nostalgic about it at all. So when they did their great sort of nostalgia exercise, the Beatles anthology, George only did it for the money because he needed money a lot by that moment. But he made peace with Paul McCartney in the end because George, the last chapters in his life are very sad. He had terrible cancer. He was wandering the world in search of a cure. And McCartney lent him a house in Los Angeles where he could be safe from press intrusion and where, in fact, he died.
What is George Harrison's legacy, do you think, Philip?
I think it is a handful of wonderful songs. And, of course, it's also what he played with the Beatles, which was the solos and the intros and the riffs that he gave to all the greatest Beatles songs, which live in the memory as much as the memory of the vocal, whether it was John or Paul or occasionally George.
You've written a brilliant biography of Paul McCartney. Now, we can both agree the guy is an absolute musical genius. Of course he is. But, Philip, is it my impression that Paul McCartney is a thin-skinned, narcissistic crank?
Those are your words. No, he, amazingly enough, for someone who's been really worshipped since the age of about 19, he was brought up by his father after his mother died when he was 14. And this wonderful man, Jim McCartney, instilled the proper values into this man. So he remains under all the honours and all the wealth that he's accumulated. He is still essentially a decent human being.
I'm pleased to hear it. Look, the guy is a true legend. I can't get you on without talking about Sir Elton John. Your brilliant biography, Sir Elton, was published a few years ago. He's just come off the back of the highest-grossing tour of all time, a new album in the works, 2 musicals on the way, and, of course, that iconic set at Glastonbury, which some consider one of the best gigs of his career. This guy shows no signs of slowing down, does he?
He doesn't. He's always talking about wanting to slow down, as he puts it, smell some roses. But this adulation that these people receive, it's a drug, really. It's more. Well, I think it's more like Chinese food. The more you have of it, the more you want.
You've written about the Stones as well. They were #1 recently with their latest album. Mick Jagger, I think, is 80, but looks 20 years younger than that. They don't make them like that anymore, do they?
No, they don't. But by this point, I mean, the Stones were wonderful once upon a time. But this latest album was they were the phony Stones pretending to come from Hackney, you know. And really, I think they've played their part. I think it is time for them to smell the roses.
Whether it's Elton, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, Pink Floyd, The Who, will we ever have stars of that comparable talent and stature ever again, Philip?
Yes, I think they will. It's what was different about those performers who came through in the 60s was how innocent the world was in those days. So the Stones could become notorious for trying to get into the Savoy Hotel without a tie. That was a terrible sin in those days. The world is now much more cynical. There is always going to be talent. There's always 2% of talent at any point in musical history, and we can always depend on that. But the other 98% gets forgotten, as it did in the 60s. Only the greatest ones survive from a lot of bad ones in the 60s as well.
Philip, such a thrill to have you on the show. Absolutely love your books. Your latest is George Harrison, The Reluctant Beatle, and it's out now. Thank you so much, Philip.
Thank you very much.
More of your Christmas decorations have come flooding in. Let's have a look at this. This is Claire's offering. Oh, look at that. Claire's a painter and she showed her talent with a fabulous illustration in her window. Next up, Elaine in West Lothian. There you go with a decorated pooch. I love it, Elaine. And Elaine's tree as well. Look at that. Gorgeous. Nice small one by the window. I've never seen a bad Christmas tree. I love them all. Coming up in the 10 o'clock hour, tomorrow's papers hot off the press. And in my take at 10, my first on-air reaction to the shocking royal race row. Does it have the hands of Harry and Meghan? What do you think? I'll be reacting to this. Some of the most senior members of the royal family implicated. I'll be sharing my unfiltered opinions in just a couple of minutes.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Ah!
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GBNews.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox,
That's right, we want to hear from you,
GB News.
Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquia, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle. Could you be quiet? What is this?
It's my new teeth.
It's your new teeth. I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Listen, we've got such a busy hour to come. Quite shocking allegations pointed in the direction of 2 of the most senior members of the royal family. King Charles, no less, and the Princess of Wales, Princess Kate. Now, listen, I'll be addressing allegations made in this book, of course, accidentally appearing in the Dutch version of the book. I mean, it's all smoke and mirrors, isn't it? I smell a rat, I've got to say. And does it have the hand of Harry and Meghan? This is a couple who loathe the royal family, but still use the royal titles. What's that all about? So I'll be addressing that very shortly. Plus, at 10 o'clock, we've got tomorrow's papers, and we've got lots of news coming in from across the board in terms of Rishi Sunak's hopes for the next general election, and a latest poll that suggests all may not be lost for the Tories. Big reaction on email to the debate I had with Stanley Johnson regarding net zero. Dave says, Mark, Can we please have more balance in the climate debate? We seem to hear more from activists with their irrational, emotional demonstration of concern about the environment, the demonisation of CO2, which is in fact benign and the source of all life. There you go. He's not happy about the nature of this debate. Stanley Johnson talks rubbish and gibberish, says Robert. We have the second highest priced electricity in the world. As a result of his and his son's green agenda, it is a disaster, says Robert. Well, look, keep those emails coming in thick and fast. mark@gbnews.com. This show is all about opinions, and yours are always at a premium. OK, folks, it is coming up to 10 o'clock on television, on radio and online. In the United Kingdom and across the world, this is Mark Dolan Tonight. In My Take at 10, my first on-air reaction to the shocking royal race row. You won't want to miss that one. As his legal woes grow, is Donald Trump's dream of a return to the White House in tatters? I'll be asking the Queen of US showbiz, royal and political reporting, Kinsey Schofield, live from the United States. She's got the inside story. Plus, tomorrow's newspaper front pages and live reaction in the studio from my top pundits. Tonight, journalist and TV personality Ingrid Tarrant, best-selling author Chris Wilde and broadcasting legend Diddy David Hamilton. OK, folks, those papers are on the way. I'll be dealing with the royal race row. My first public comments after the news headlines and Ray Addison.
Thanks, Mark. Good evening. Here's our top stories from the GB newsroom. And in breaking news, the UK is set to carry out surveillance flights to help find hostages held by Hamas. The Ministry of Defence says searches will be carried out using airspace over the eastern Mediterranean, Israel and Gaza. There are currently believed to be more than 130 people remaining in captivity in the Gaza Strip. Hamas says they won't be released until there's a permanent ceasefire. Cumbria police have declared a major incident due to heavy snow. Vehicles have become stuck and they're urging the public only to travel when absolutely necessary. It comes after the Met Office put in place weather warnings for snow and ice for many parts of the UK. That's set to last until midday tomorrow. Forecasters say temperatures could drop to -12 in parts of Scotland. A British soldier killed in Kenya was just days from finishing his tour of the country. Major Kevin McCool was off duty when he died on Wednesday. His father says he was shot while on a motorbike trip. The 32-year-old had served in Europe, the Middle East, the Falklands and Africa. Joseph McCool paid tribute to his son, describing him as special. An 84-year-old man who died following a huge house explosion in Edinburgh has been named locally as James Smith. The blast, which happened in the Baberton area last night, was heard from several miles away. Mr. Smith is understood to have been in a neighbouring property. A 43-year-old woman and a 54-year-old man were taken to hospital. Police say there are no suspicious circumstances. Football fans who were charged following clashes in Birmingham on Thursday night have been granted bail. A special court session took place after violence erupted ahead of Aston Villa's match. Almost 30 of the defendants were granted conditional bail, including a 22-year-old Polish woman who pleaded not guilty to violent disorder. West Midlands police say 5 officers were injured after several Polish fans were told they wouldn't be allowed into the stadium. Train drivers have been braving the cold today to attend picket lines as they begin a week of industrial action over pay. Commuters across the country have been facing 7 days of travel disruption now. No East Midlands trains are running today. There's a limited service between London and Scotland on LNER. ASLEF members recently voted to continue walkouts for the next 6 months. This is GB News across the UK on TV, in your car, on digital radio and on your smart speaker by saying, play GB News. Now, back to Mark.
My thanks to Ray Addison, who returns in an hour's time. Welcome to Mark Dolan Tonight. As his legal woes grow, is Donald Trump's dream of a return to the White House in tatters? I'll be asking the Queen of US showbiz, royal and political reporting, Kinsey Schofield, live from the United States. Kinsey has got the inside story. Is it going wrong for the orange one? Plus, tomorrow's newspaper front pages and live reaction in the studio from tonight's top pundits. This evening, we're joined by journalist and TV personality Ingrid Tarrant, best-selling author and campaigner Chris Wilde, and broadcasting legend Diddy David Hamilton. Plus, they'll be nominating their headline heroes and back page zeros of the day. A packed hour, and those papers are coming. But first, my take at 10. To describe somebody inquiring about what a baby will look like when it's born as racist is misleading, nonsensical, and frankly, wicked. It's perverse, it's libelous, and it's profoundly wrong. In fact, to unfairly call someone racist is evil. Enter Stage Left, a book written by Harry and Meghan's favourite journalist, Omid Scobie, a man who looks like he's had more work done than Sharon Osbourne and Cher combined. And in that book, he makes that very accusation. The two people who have had a finger pointed at them are two of the most senior members of the royal family, King Charles and the Princess of Wales, Princess Kate, with zero tangible evidence that that conversation happened, or if it did, that it was conducted in malice. For the love of God, throughout the history of humanity, every family that ever existed, mums and dads, uncles, aunties, grandparents, have always speculated on what the baby is going to look like. I'll tell you a personal story. When my two kids were on the way, that was the conversation that dominated our family occasions. In the end, I'm delighted to say that the kids got my good looks and charm and their mother's short temper and feet. These so-called revelations, which are really just ugly mudslinging, are not about truth or tackling the appalling scourge of actual racism. This is about publicity. This is about keeping Harry and Meghan in the headlines. Author Omid Scobie is not the problem here. Let's talk about Harry. Is Harry really happy to stand by whilst his own father is characterised as a man responsible for prejudice? The Sun newspaper report that Charles is devastated by this latest revelation. The paper report that the King looked visibly exhausted at the COP28 summit in UAE, and that, wait for it, his doctor was rarely far from his side. Let's not forget, this man has one of the biggest jobs in the country. He carries a huge responsibility and burden, and he is 75 years of age. What is this doing to his health? Excuse me, what did this sick soap opera do to the health of our great Queen, the late great Elizabeth II? And how much damage will this cause to the monarchy of this country? The other figure to be targeted alongside our poor old monarch is Catherine, the Princess of Wales. Are you telling me that this 41-year-old woman who grew up in diverse, multicultural Britain is some kind of a frenzied white supremacist and a flag bearer for the KKK? Do me a favour. Now, the Sussexes are clear that they've got nothing to do with this book, but if these unfounded accusations are allowed to hang in the air, then that's it for Harry. It's game over. We, the British people, won't have him back, even if his family will. The couple, we're told, are not behind these named allegations in the book, but their silence is deafening. They could kill the story at a stroke, but they won't, because they've got nothing else. Their currency is victimhood. Sorry, folks, I'm done with these two. It's not au revoir for me. It's goodbye and good riddance. Your reaction, Mark at GBNews.com. I'll get to your emails shortly, but first, my top pundits, journalist and TV personality Ingrid Tarrant, best-selling author and campaigner Chris Wilde, and broadcasting legend David Hamilton. David, I think it's very unacceptable that this book contains allegations, unfounded, unproven allegations about senior members of the royal family, and I don't understand why Prince Harry won't speak out to defend his own father.
No, I must tell you my standing on this. I actually have 9 grandchildren and 3 of them are mixed race. And when all of them were born, I think, you know, we speculated, are they going to be more like their mother or more like their father? I think that's what everybody does. All those children, each one of them, not just the 3 who are mixed race. And I think that's how people are. And I think all this awful stuff that this man has been writing, I would say to everybody, Don't buy this book. We know what's in it. It's all tripe. And I think he should change his name from Omid to Omit. Omit the book and omit him.
Indeed. Chris Wilde, your reaction to the outrageous allegations in this book?
Yeah, I'm saying, Mark, you know, I married a Greek Cypriot girl who's half Greek Cypriot, she's half Egyptian, so my children are mixed race as well. And I remember my family asking at the time, you know, what will the baby look like? There's nothing racial about that. This book is just, again, it's just derogative material. I'm just putting them two in the picture again. I'm like you, I'm fed up. There's so many things going on in the world. I don't want to hear anything else about Harry and Meghan at all. And I just think this is just, again, just trying to keep that narrative going. It's just ignorance as well, pure ignorance. And I just think, just leave the royal family alone, get on with it. Bigger problems in the world right now.
However, Ingrid Tarrant, we don't have the lived experience of Meghan Markle. And I think the point that Omid Scobie is trying to make is that when she lived in this country, she faced prejudice. Who are we to say that that is not the case?
Well, who is to say that she did, apart from her? Because she didn't. The truth is that we embraced her when she first came here. When the engagement was announced, it was fantastic. Everybody was jubilant, and it just... Do you know, for people to think that people are racist in this country is actually not true. I think very few people, I think as a whole, we're not at all. And that's not... you could call us culturist or racist, whatever you like. We do actually accept a lot of people. Americans are probably, in fact, they are the 10th most racist people in the world. And I think this is all born from Meghan. She's got a massive chip on her shoulder, but it's very, very odd because I think because she's half black and half white, she's actually betraying the white side of herself. She should be all-encompassing. She should see it from both sides. So I don't know what her problem is, apart from the fact she's got a massive chip on her shoulder, and she just is jealous. And I think it's got worse with this book because I think she's quite anti-royal. I think she wants to bring the royals down. But do you know what? And you said in your monologue as well, you know, the whole princess thing, that she hasn't got the title. No, but she has got the Duchess. But I think she's more upset because the children aren't prince and princess. Because if they had been, she'd be wanting to preserve the monarchy. But this way, she's actually trying to destroy it. I can't stand the woman.
I think she's very jealous of Kate. I think she is very jealous of Kate, who is adored in this country. Everybody thinks that Kate just cannot put a foot wrong, and I think a lot of it is based on that.
The thing is, we have to point out, don't we, Chris Wilde, that this book, written by Omid Scobie, you know, the couple, the Sussexes, are clear they weren't involved in the content of the book, but he wants to put their side of the story. Many would argue that Meghan Markle has been unfairly vilified. After all, it's her husband who left the country and started a new life in California. It's her husband's family that we're talking about. It's the monarchy, which is a British tradition from which her husband comes. Why are we blaming Meghan? Surely Harry is accountable here.
Absolutely, and I think the author is the third party in all this. They know what they're doing. It's a money-making mechanism, and I think it's Harry's. You know, I think with this media, I like Meghan. Okay, so I'm going to disagree with the panel. I actually like her, and I think it's the media who's made her a victim. The media's made her a victim. It's, you know, we're taking scope of Harry, we're taking our eye off Harry. He's coordinating all this, not Meghan. So I think, you know, I feel sorry for this lady. I feel very sorry for her. We've done this. We're putting her in the picture all the time. But it's him, and I agree, it is him.
Do you honestly think that he's coordinating?
Of course he is. He's so powerful. How could you have a book like this without him giving the go-ahead? You wouldn't.
I think he would now be having very serious questions about has he done the right thing.
David, one at a time. David, what were you going to say? You don't think Harry's orchestrating this, David. Why not?
What's that?
Do you think Harry's orchestrating this? Do you think...
No, I think Harry now... I'm sorry, on this particular occasion, I disagree with Chris. I think that he is probably having second thoughts and probably thinking, what on earth have I done?
No, I don't.
What have I let myself in for?
Ingrid, do you think that Harry is the architect of this entire soap opera?
I don't think he's got the nous. I don't think he's got the brains.
But he's got the power.
No, he's got the power, but he hasn't got... But he hasn't, because he hasn't got brain power.
But he can say yes or no. He could stop this book.
She is a manipulative woman. If you look up manipulative woman, she's got every single trait that describes a manipulative woman. She was the one that took him out of the country. She was the one that encouraged to do this. You can see the way that he looks at her for almost approval. She directs the interviews. She controls the interviews.
I don't agree with that, Ingrid, at all.
Ingrid, these are all impressions you have of Meghan Markle. She's not here to defend herself. Where is the tangible proof that she's manipulative?
Exactly. Where is it?
Because
it's the media. It's the media.
No, you can see the way that she plays the media, plays the victim, how she controls everything. Everything you can see about.
But the media's controlling your opinion on her as well.
No, it's not, because I've got a free opinion. I don't get controlled that easily. And when I read things about body language and everything, how she holds him, how she grips him, everything, honestly... All right, I can't completely substantiate it, but the way also the interviews as well, with that Oprah Winfrey interview, she got a person on side, same colour as her, so that it would be sympathetic, and then do that whole thing about sort of like, she said what? The colour of the skin, my God, you know, all that sort of thing. That was done.
Look back on the quotes.
Bradbury, she definitely asked him to ask the question, are you OK? Thank you for asking. Nobody's ever asked me before. I can't stand it. It's the crocodile tears, all that kind of like, oh, so innocent.
OK, Chris,
Poor
last
Harry.
word, briefly, couple of seconds.
Yeah, I just don't agree. I just think, like you said, I think we've put this girl under so much pressure. The media have bullied her so much, and you know how the media works. It just changes the narrative completely.
OK.
And I just think, listen, live and let live. She's been forced into this, and I know the royal family, people like Harry, so much power. He's coordinating all this. He knows exactly what he's doing.
All right,
Well,
who's in the driving seat, Harry or Meghan?
Meghan.
Let's say that they're in it together, and between the two of them, they've made a hell of a mess of it.
They most certainly have. Listen, your reaction on email, mark@gbnews.com. Looking forward to the next item. As his legal woes grow, is Donald Trump's dream of a return to the White House in tatters? I'll be asking the Queen of US showbiz, royal and political reporting, Kinsey Schofield, live from the United States. That's next.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only three people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle. Could you be quiet? What is this?
It's my new teeth.
It's your new teeth. I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie. Second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GB News.
Harsh words for Meghan Markle from Peter. Mark, is there anything positive or attractive to be said for Harry's wife? A very sad, small person lost in a much larger world. Arthur says, Mark, I'm surprised that nobody seems to have pointed out that most people could make comments regarding babies. Will it be a boy or a girl? Will it have ginger hair? Will it have this, that, or the other? Just pure speculations. It's not racist to wonder which parent it will favour. It's shocking to me that it's been referred to as being racist. Thank you for that, Arthur. Mark, great summary, says Jim. This awful pair disgust us. Meghan is the issue, says Jim. You've got to ask yourself, who's in the driving seat? Is it Meghan or is it Harry? I'll get to more of your emails shortly. But we've been discussing Christmas decorations. Ours went up this afternoon round at our place, and we had a lot of fun with it, with the fairy lights and the baubles and all the rest of it. But are Christmas decorations a bit naff? Well, I'm delighted to say you've been sending in your excellent Christmas decorations. This is Alfin and Tina in the Lowther Hills. Oh, look at that gorgeous trio of doggies and a very fine tree. I think, is that a piano in the background as well? But lovely tree. It's a really well-packed tree. Different types of baubles there and 3 matching dogs. What's not to like? OK, this is Debbie's tree now. Let's have a look at Debbie's tree. Again, you've got some seriously big trees going on here, and that's in front of a very fine Gothic-looking window. I love the ribbons. Wow. God, they must go into a massive box at the end of the Christmas season. And how about Heather? This is what Heather has to offer. And that's just a really, really nice little decoration over the fireplace. That is gorgeous. Is that your own work, Heather? Or did you buy that ready-made? I'm quite jealous. Brilliant stuff. Well, look, I've got to say, we've got more of those brilliant decoration pictures coming. But can I get back to more of your reaction to the issue of the royal family, the royal race row, and a big response on email? And how about this from... sorry, they're coming in so fast. Yes. Margaret says, Mark, it takes a woman to know another, and I feel Ingrid on your panel has got Meghan spot on. Meghan is so manipulative, and it shows. What shocks me is that the couple haven't actually spoken out and said, listen, we're not pointing the finger at King Charles or the Princess of Wales. They are not racist. Why the deafening silence? Well, let's head now to the United States and the Queen of American showbiz, royal and political reporting, Kinsey Schofield. Kinsey, great to have you. You've a bit of trouble getting the line, but we got there in the end. Can we talk about Donald Trump's legal woes? It's not been a great week for the orange one, has it?
Oh, well, that's not a very nice nickname, Mark. That's right. Multiple federal judges have determined this week, as recently as yesterday, that the former president cannot utilize that presidential immunity defense for not only civil cases, but criminal cases brought against him. His former presidential status, they said it's not a get out of jail free forever card, and they don't consider his actions on January 6th within the scope of his presidential responsibilities. You know, I do think that this definitely hurts what we know of his attorney's defense strategy so far. Hopefully they have something else up their sleeves, but this is definitely... Here's what I will say, though. If the Biden family is watching, they might be concerned by this recent ruling by these federal judges as well, because somebody might look at some of their past behaviors and say, well, those are out of scope for presidential responsibilities as well. So no presidential immunity for the Biden family either.
Indeed, and Joe's notorious son, Hunter. Listen, I think it's quite clear from the polls that if Donald Trump has the chance to run for the White House next year, he's got a good chance of winning. But will he get that opportunity? What do you think?
I think he will get that opportunity, and I think that the ultimate hope is, and I don't have a dog in the fight. Can I just say that, Mark? I get so many people mad at me for my commentary. I do not have I'm trying to move to your country. I'm trying to find my own freedom, Meghan Markle. But I don't have a dog in the fight. But I do think that their ultimate objective is to get him in the White House so that, you know, he could pardon himself. I think that that's really their big game plan. He is polling-wise much, much stronger than Joe Biden. And if Joe Biden is all the Democratic Party can bring to the table, I think that they are in dire need of some fresh blood. And unfortunately, after seeing Gavin Newsom go head-to-head with Ron DeSantis, I don't think that he's strong enough either to beat Donald Trump.
Fascinating stuff. Now, unfortunately, with technical issues, the time is against us slightly, Kinsey. But what is the fallout to the release of this new book about the Sussexes, Endgame, by Omid Scobie? How's it going down in America?
Well, you know, Americans do eat up the soap opera element of all things royal. You know, that's why Princess Diana was a queen here in the States, because of that soap opera element, the gossipy element that she attracted. So the headlines are here. However, in Montecito, you know, it seems like Harry and Meghan's star has fallen quite a bit. Montecito bookstores are refusing. I shouldn't say refusing. There's just no interest in Endgame. This is from the Times. My friend Kieran Southern breaking this story that Montecito bookstores are not covering Endgame, that Montecito neighbors are uninterested and appalled by the way that Harry and Meghan they're not respecting their elders, and it seems like they're being very cruel towards their family members. So a lot of the neighborhood saying that they are uninterested in the Sussexes and don't respect them or appreciate the way that they've treated their family.
Indeed, and I understand that CNN's King Charles premiere with Gayle King has made a few headlines.
Mark, yeah, we call it Markled. Remember that big headline? I can't remember what newspaper it is. You got Markled, and the definition is you've associated with Meghan Markle, so you have professional failures. Gayle King is a huge champion of Harry and Meghan. I'd say she's the American Omid Scobie, unless she's competing with her good friend Oprah Winfrey. And she's been trying to get Meghan Markle on this show. It premiered last week to the worst ratings CNN has ever had. It's called King Charles, a play on Gayle King and Charles Barkley's names. And, you know, it appears so far she's been Markled.
What goes around comes around. Well, the ratings are always through the roof when you join us, Kinsey, and we'll do longer next week. My thanks to the Queen of US showbiz, royal and political reporting, Kinsey Schofield. Check out her excellent podcast, To Die For Daily, which is also her excellent website as well. Thanks, Kinsey. See you in a week's time. OK, folks, we got the papers next with full pundit reactions. See you in 2. Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 till 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You've been sending in pictures of your Christmas decorations. They've been going up, I'm delighted to say, over the weekend. We did ours this afternoon. And this is Tony's effort. Well done, Tony. Look at that lovely tree. And, my God, the prezzies are underneath the tree already. Well done, Tony.
One yet.
Tony's got himself organised. How about Rob? Let's have a look at Rob's tree. Oh, my God.
Nice.
Can't decide what I'm more excited about. GB News is there. But also a really nice tree and also some excellent decoration over the fireplace as well. You've got a lovely place. I like that parquet flooring as well. What a lovely home you've got. Nice one, Rob. Keep it GB News. And look at this.
Oh, that's cute.
Danny, Alfie and Ronnie from the Isle of Wight.
Oh, I like that.
With a really nice display. I mean, what have we got there? We've got an angel. We've got a sort of Father Christmas-type character on the left-hand side. And elves, would you say, Ingrid?
Yeah,
Yeah.
say kind of elves.
It's
The
gorgeous.
Stocking.
Very, do you know what I would say? Very artistic, very creative. Nice job. Brilliant stuff. Look, thank you for that. Producer Katie is busy getting some more of the pictures that you sent in onto the system. By the way, just a team of 2 tonight. James and Katie, you've done a brilliant job. Thank you for your hard work. It's time now for this. And let's not forget Director Jane. OK, we've got The Observer. Israel using Hamas prisoners to track down terror chiefs. The Israeli military's coming push into southern Gaza is driven by the belief that intelligence gleaned from hundreds of militants captured during recent fighting in the north will allow them to find and kill the leaders of Hamas. COP28 leaders brand Sunak a hypocrite on fossil fuels. Rishi Sunak has been accused of hypocrisy on the international stage after pushing for a phase-out of fossil fuels at the UN COP28 climate summit in Dubai, weeks after backing more oil and gas exploration in the North Sea. Sunday Express now. Charles, I'll never give up on Harry, but King's heart is breaking over damaging royal race row. The Sunday Telegraph. Starmer piles praise on Thatcher to woo the right. Sir Keir Starmer has heaped praise on Margaret Thatcher for effecting meaningful change in Britain as he launches an explicit appeal to Conservative voters to switch to Labour. In his most audacious attempt to woo centre-right support reminiscent of the New Labour years, the Labour leader tomorrow accuses the Tories of a betrayal of their promises to control immigration. Also, royal palaces to hold talks on racism claims, RAF spy planes to hunt for Gaza hostages, and protect the Telegraph's independence, urges the former Prime Minister Liz Truss. Sunday Times. I saw Hamas rape women before killing them, says massacre survivor. And Rwanda's extra £15 million to seal migration deal. Rwanda will be given at least £15 million more by the British government to secure an immigration treaty, with Foreign Secretary James Cleverly preparing to fly to Kigali as soon as tomorrow to seal the deal. Also, Sussex's left off aristocrats' wedding guest list over rift. More trouble for the Sussexes. Sunday Mirror. Business as usual for Firm. Royals unite on race row. Charles, Kate and Wills to present a united front. Source close to Harry says the storm is unfortunate. Well, that's an understatement, isn't it? Sunday People. Elle's dad horror as gun gangs groom kids at the age of 9. Murdered Ellie Edwards' father has told of his grief ahead of the first anniversary of his daughter's death and his shock at kids aged just 9 being lured into gun crime. And Royals stand firm after race row is the other headline. Independence. Kamala Harris pledges $3 billion for climate as she stands in for Joe Biden. Doomed to fail, Tory childcare promise in tatters. Over 3,000 nurseries and childminders have closed in just a year due to nationwide staffing crisis. So how will Jeremy Hunt honour key autumn statement pledge to offer 30 hours of free childcare for the under-5s by 2025? And the Daily Star Sunday. Get the thermals on. We're facing the coldest winter for 10 years. The polar excess. Weather boffins are warning that winter will be the coldest for a decade, with another icy blast at Christmas set to follow the big freeze now hitting the UK. The polar plunge will bring about -12 temperatures.
Great.
So, get your thermals on, is the advice. Let's get reaction now to my very warm-hearted, excellently insulated pundit. Journalist and TV personality Ingrid Tarrant, best-selling author and campaigner Chris Wilde, and broadcasting legend Diddy David Hamilton. So many stories to get through. Can we talk briefly about this cold snap? This is a real worry, isn't it, David?
Yeah.
Particularly for my older listeners and viewers.
Yes, I was just wondering, is this part of global warming?
You have to wonder.
Yeah, but it's bitterly cold outside. And, apparently, the windscreens, it's even worse up north, isn't it? In Carlisle and up to Scotland, it's really bad. So, yes, I think we can honestly say winter draws on.
Indeed. How do you stay warm in the winter? What's your solution? Because I wear a puffer jacket indoors, which Mrs. Dolan thinks is very unglamorous.
I've got a very nice heated blanket now, which is an innovation that's recently arrived. Nice. And I get into it at night, and it's really lovely. To be honest with you, I can't wait to go to bed. This is actually a late night for me. I'm staying up and having a Horlicks rave up.
There you go. I can't wait to go to bed. I'm sure that's what you say to all the girls. Chris Wilde, this is going to be a big problem. Older people, maybe watching and listening to this show, worried about turning on the heating tonight.
Yeah, but it's not just older people, it's everyone, isn't it? Cost of living crisis. I got my gas bill recently. It was astronomical. So it's not just older people, but we know that's a very vulnerable group which need more support. Times are hard right now, and I think we should be focusing more on that as well at the moment. But who knows? It's just everything's so precarious at the moment, and cost of living crisis and everything what's going on. And unfortunately, that age group will suffer.
Indeed. Look, very sky-high electricity and gas bills at the moment, Ingrid. This proves we need energy independence.
Of course we do.
But the Observer are throwing shade on Rishi Sunak for agreeing new oil and gas licences.
Oh, I know.
Should he feel bad?
No, he shouldn't at all. And the fact that he's been called hypocrite, forget it. He's just got to be bigger than that and just let it roll off his back. We do need that. We don't need the dependence on imports for our fuels at all. It creates jobs, it creates huge wealth, which we need, and that can be spread amongst the society, and particularly amongst the vulnerable, that in the cases like, with heating and stuff like that. But, and also, this whole thing is a nonsense, this whole COP28 and the net zero, because we are down to whatever it is. But China and India are right up, because instead of us producing manufacturing, which we should be doing, because we are brilliant at it. All the shipbuilding's gone. All the things that we used to do have been
Car industry has definitely shrunk.
Everything. It's just being sent across, and all the white goods are coming from China. What happens if we have a bit of a war? with them. It's a very uncertain world at the moment. Then we don't have anything. Even in lockdown, we had a problem with getting certain things because we were dependent on China for them. Let's get ourselves completely self-sufficient, and that's what we need our fossil fuels for. You can do the green agenda, you can just look after the planet a little bit better, but the way that they're approaching it is not the right way, and not taking our land either. That's another thing, because that's all part and parcel of it.
David Hamilton, Starmer piles praise on Margaret Thatcher to attract right-wing voters. Will it work?
I don't know, but he's so far ahead in the polls that I'm surprised that, you know, it's like a sort of a, you know, it's just a catwalk. I mean, it's such an easy thing, isn't it, really, for them to get in, almost by default, really. I mean, the Tories have just turned in on themselves, and they've just been there for too long now. People want change, so he probably doesn't even need to do this, you know. I think, you know, he's virtually there, isn't he?
However, do you think praising Margaret Thatcher could be a vote winner, Chris?
No, not at all. I think, you know, I think it's... Labour should get in power, but praising is not going to be a vote winner. His biggest problem is he's not likeable in the Labour Party. There's a lot of Corbynites still there, I think, you know, who don't like him. And do you know what we say? It's going to be a landslide victory, but it might not be. They might need the backup of the Liberal Democrats to get into power. But using things like that's not going to do anything in his favour.
I don't know. I think it's reverse psychology.
I don't know.
Recognising Margaret Thatcher as a wonderful woman. And they're going, blimey, if he can...
Yeah, but not the leader of the Labour Party to praise her, you know, it is.
That's just the thing. It's a reverse psychology. It's people think, well, because very few people would deny that she was, in essence, you may not have agreed with everything that she did, but in essence, she
was a good leader. We had this discussion, right? She was a good leader. She was a strong leader.
Yeah, exactly.
But he's not, and he shouldn't be using that.
But he's hanging on to her handbag.
Well, is there a reason why he's praising Margaret Thatcher, which is that for 3 consecutive general elections, Labour voters backed the Iron Lady, and he wants that mentality to happen again.
Yeah, but he's in a completely different Labour Party right now, and I think just using her name is going to scare voters. It's not going to attract voters. He's not likeable at the moment as well. So
no, but I think it's kind of because he recognises that she was good. They're going to go, oh, really? So he might adopt some of her policies. But he's
I like you said the reverse psychology. It should be Rishi using her name to kind of promote himself.
Yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it, that he's mentioned Thatcher but not Tony Blair.
Yes, exactly right.
Would
he was a good
looked
leader.
At Tony Blair, who was a very successful leader, and said, we want to go back to that.
Yes, I just wonder whether it's the popularity among working-class people for Margaret Thatcher. In the end, she lifted the working class in this country. She gave them the right to buy their own property, start businesses. It was a very entrepreneurial and aspirational decade, which massively expanded the scope of the middle class in this country. I mean, David, you remember Only Fools and Horses. Even Del Boy became a yuppie under Margaret Thatcher. I just wonder whether Keir Starmer wants to tap into that aspiration.
Yeah, I think that's it, do you? I think that's probably
Well, she delivered what she said. He will never be able to deliver. He just won't.
Because he's not a powerful leader.
None of them are.
No.
None of them are. This is the problem.
I think the biggest problem that Labour are going to have is that they're going to inherit the most incredible mess, aren't they? And
but we inherited the mess, don't forget, as well.
Yeah, but to have to put that right is almost insoluble, isn't it? I mean, how you begin to put right the mess that this country has been in for such a long time, I don't know.
When I say we, I mean we Conservatives inherited the mess of the Labour before. It just keeps on going. It's just piling up. It's just getting worse.
They all mess it up in different ways. Sunday Express, Ingrid. Charles, I will never give up on Harry. Now, you're a parent, aren't you?
Yes.
I mean, I said in my take at 10 that I'm done with Harry now because he hasn't stepped in to say, look, you know, my dad is not a royal racist, and therefore I just think it's goodbye rather than au revoir. Do you think Charles should sack or back his own son?
Oh, back his son, 100%. It's the prodigal son. You know, he's
But the betrayal, Ingrid.
Do you know, honestly, I feel really quite sorry for Harry, and I know you may not agree. I think he's stuck between a rock and a hard place. He's got his loyalties are divided. I think perhaps he's trading on a little bit that it is unconditional love from your parents, and he's backing Meghan because he has to be strong, he has to be loyal, he has to support. He was brought up that way. And he's got children with her. What can he do? Just say, Meghan, you're bang out of order. But the thing is, he should stand up and say, even if she's not going to say, we aren't racist, we never have been. King Charles, none of the royal family have. The Commonwealth, look at it, it's a very, very mixed race of people, all different cultures and colours and everything. It is absolutely wrong. But I tell you something which worries me, that the royal family are considering suing or taking court action. Why? They don't have to defend themselves. They just have to say, well, of course, it's the most natural thing in the world. Wasn't
Harry saying recently that they would rather like to go to Sandringham for Christmas, and then this comes along and absolutely blows it out of the window? I mean,
well, perhaps Meghan as well sort of said, no, you can't go.
Well, I think she said she never wants to come back to this country again.
OK, well, do you think that the king should back or sack his own son, Dave?
No, I agree with Ingrid. I think that, you know, he loves his son.
Of course he
loves him.
He's only human as well.
What he wants is, he wants the old Harry back. And that's what we'd all like.
I think I would have to sack my son if he said I was a racist.
No.
I mean, I know that Harry has not said that. Yeah. But what he hasn't done, he hasn't stepped in
that they're not a racist.
With a statement saying, hey, can I be clear, my dad is not a racist.
I think they've done a lot of very silly things, and I think that it's going to be very difficult to put them right, but that's what we'd like to see.
What do you think, back, sack or crack?
No. It's good. I think he's extremely damaged. He's extremely damaged.
We've all had a drink.
Back.
Yeah, he's extremely damaged, and they need to stick together. It's his dad after all, and you know, your dad is your dad, and that's it.
Blood is thicker than water, and old Harry's pretty thick as well. OK, listen, very excited because I'm a Celebrity has just finished. We'll get reaction to what's happened in the jungle, and most importantly, GB News star Nigel Farage. That's next. Plus, more of tomorrow's newspaper front pages and live reaction in the studio from my top pundits. They're nominating their headline heroes and back page zeros, plus a new development in the Rwanda plan. All of that's next.
We're here for the show.
Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Oh! No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox,
That's right, we want to hear from you,
GB News.
Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure. So join me, Nana Aquia, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle.
Could you be quiet? What is this? It's my new teeth.
It's your new teeth. I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Right now.
OK, listen, we've got more of your Christmas decorations. Well done to Katie for organising these single-handedly. Let's have a look at what we've got. We'll start with Philip. With a nice bit of pink. And again, Mark Dolan tonight in the background. I'm deeply honoured. Thank you so much for watching or listening to the show. Now, that's unusual, isn't it, Chris? That is a white Christmas tree.
Yeah, it's nice, though, isn't it?
It's gorgeous. Yeah. And I've got to say that Philip's got prezzies under the tree as well. You're such an organised bunch. I've not bought a single present yet.
Not me.
Can't afford it. Cost of living. Julie, let's have a look at Julie now. And look at that glow in the dark. Wow. Now, is that another white tree or is it the exposure of the camera? But it's very fancy, isn't it? That's a lovely, lovely tree and well decorated. I mean, that's the best illuminated of all of the trees you've sent in so far. Well done, Julie. And Doug. Let's see what Doug's got. Oh, just less is more. He's got some lovely... looks like snow outside. So you've got fairy lights. And the word Noel, spelt out in block letters. And then a view of the garden. Gorgeous white Christmas.
Where is he with the snow? Where's he got the snow?
Love to know where Doug is with that snow. Let us know, Doug, and we'll share that information. Loved all you... Oh, God, well done. We got some more. We got Nora, who has sent... This in. I am not the decoration, let me tell you. That's brilliant. Just some really nice fairy lights on the ground and on the electric guitar. So Nora is quite rock and roll.
Oh.
And Susan definitely will take as many as you've got. Now, Susan's gone very traditional, very Victorian. I like it. By the way, there are two cat statues on there. And they've been decorated, and then just some very fancy lights. That's a posh display, isn't it, David?
Yes, very posh.
That's brilliant. Well done, folks. Well, listen, Katie, if you've got time, gather a few more before the end of the show. Let's see what we can manage. Listen, let's get back to my top pundits tonight, Ingrid Tarrant, Chris Wilde and David Hamilton. We said we'd give you the latest from the jungle. And let me tell you that voting has now started. The first eviction on I'm a Celebrity will happen tomorrow, but it won't be Nigel Farage, according to the top sort of experts in that particular field, the old bookies. But apparently Nella Rose could be on her ear. Do you lament her departure?
Not at all. Not at all, at all, at all. I couldn't stand the way that she misinterpreted what Fred said about he could be old enough to be her father, but she turns it into a great big thing. She took on Nigel Farage, who was extremely gentlemanly about it and very diplomatic. Oh, she gets absolutely on my nerves, and I would definitely vote her out. But then, I think... she probably won't get voted out because everybody's so sensitive. Meghan hasn't helped the situation about colour, that she probably won't, because then everybody else will say, oh, she only got voted out because of the colour of her skin.
Yeah, too right. Brilliant
Jamie
stuff.
Lee, then.
Well, there you go. Well, look, there you go. She doesn't sit on the fence, does she? Lovely Ingrid Tarrant. Speaking of which, it's time now for my pundits to nominate their headline heroes and back page zeros. And who is your headline hero of the day, Ingrid?
Oh, so I love this man. Let me get his name, though. I've forgotten it.
Chris Burton.
Chris Burton, because he got a parking fine. He took his father to hospital. He got a parking fine and had to park around the corner. When he came back, took it on the windscreen, going, So he went to the council and he complained, tried to get out of the ticket. How he knew this, I don't know. But he discovered that the ticket should be 20 centimetres, but it was only 14 centimetres. 6 centimetres short. Size matters in this case. Here it is. And 6 centimetres is about...
It's quite big, isn't it?
Well, it's about that.
Well,
it really does matter. Well, if you talk about man, it matters a lot. Anyway, and absolutely right, because legally they have to be 20 centimetres, and now it's going to help other people who have parking fines. I love people
Well
like that.
done, Chris Burton.
Get the council, get the people, because it's a scourge on
And
drivers.
you can always appeal. Chris, I know you're a big fan of King Charles for his choice of a Greek tie.
Just a nice little touch. His dad would have done that as well. Where Rishi had snubbed the Prime Minister, the Greek Prime Minister. He wore the Greek tie. I thought, that's a nice little touch. Is exactly what his dad would have done. So
brilliant. David, a great hero, a football legend.
Terry Venables, a wonderful footballer, wonderful manager, writer. He wrote Hazel, the excellent TV series. He was a singer as well. If you think of Terry Venables, you picture a man with a smile on his face. He took life by the throat. He shook every living daylight out of it that he could. A life well lived, Terry Venables.
A true original. Absolutely. Ingrid, briefly, your back page baddie.
Well, Stella McCartney, sorry.
Fashion designer.
Fashion designer. She's gone to COP28. Her son, I'm on his side. Beckett, you said, don't know why you're going. Why don't you just tell all the leaders to F off?
Ouch.
She's doing a thing against sort of like the fashion industry, the waste of all the fabrics, the overproduction. She won't use fur and leather. I disagree with her on that because that is actually the best materials you can use.
Because it's natural.
And she's using alternatives and she's using plastic.
OK, look, I will say that Stella McCartney does make an effort with the environment more than many other fashion brands.
But she's using plastic, that's wrong.
Polyester is a problem. OK, Chris has got Rishi Sunak for snubbing the Greek PM.
Absolutely.
And David's got Omid Scobie and his new book about the Sussexes, which leaves enough time for our final Christmas decoration of the night. Loved all your pictures. I'm sorry if we didn't have time to get yours on telly. This is Mark's tree. Look at that, another triumph. Can I just say that you're a very creative bunch and you've put a lot of effort into your trees. Not one of them was disappointing. Mark Dolan tonight won't be disappointing tomorrow. We're back at 9 with my all-star panel. But Headliners is next. Thanks for your company.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, welcome to your latest GB News weather. I'm Ellie Glazier. It was a very cold and frosty start for many of us this morning, and there's been quite a few wintry showers across western coasts. These are brought about by some occlusion features across parts of western Scotland, northwest England, into Wales and southwest England too. Quite a bit of snowfall across parts of northwest England with an amber snow warning in place. Some roads becoming impassable this afternoon, but that snow will gradually start to ease into this evening. Elsewhere though, further south, those showers continue to push in from the west, turning to snow across parts of Wales and the Pennines as well, where we could see up to 10 centimetres through Sunday morning. Another chilly night across the UK, but perhaps just a touch milder across the very far south. So a milder start across the south, but a much cloudier and showery picture too. Showers continue to push in from the west, and with those cold temperatures perhaps bringing some icy stretches through Sunday morning. For Scotland, though, it'll be a much drier and brighter day. Plenty of sunshine and blue sky around into the afternoon, but still feeling cool and cold despite that sunshine, -1 in some places. Further south, a milder picture, but a little bit windier too, with winds coming up from the southwest. Monday starts a wet picture for many, with hail snow across parts of Wales into the south of the Pennines as well, but that will eventually clear its way south and eastwards as we go through the day on Monday. Further north across Scotland, northern England, a drier picture, plenty of sunshine around, but that rain and cloud slowly clearing its way south and eastwards through Monday, leaving a drier and brighter but colder day for many on Tuesday and Wednesday.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquia, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend.